Hey everybody out in network land, time once again to learn something about networking from networking-forums.com. Today I want to talk about radius troubleshooting and some advanced stuff. Here's the situation. You've got a site where people are trying to log in on the wireless network, and you've got an 802.1x system in place, and they connect with radius, and some clients are getting on, and some clients are not. Some clients fail to get on, and then later in the day they get on. And then they don't, and then they do, and then it's back and forth. What's going on? Okay, well, you check in your radiusd.log, and you see this statement happening with all the sessions, whether they're successful or not, whether it passes certificate information or not. You see these error messages that say the EAP state didn't finish. Please read this web page to see what's going on. Well, turns out that web page is really important. Somebody put it there for a reason. Let me explain what's going on. Your radius system is working. You remember, you had guys that actually got on the network. That means the supplicant worked, the wireless access point worked, the wireless controller worked, the radius server worked, the Active Directory or LDAP that you have as a backend worked. Everything got fine. The certificate was valid. Everything's good. But then the same person at a different time doesn't have a successful connection. This explains why, and why it's a client issue and not an issue with the network or with the back-end servers in the radius and certificate authority and directory. So let's go to that web page. Click, here it is, preloaded for fun. freeradius.com. Now, I was getting this message because I'm using a server built on FreeRadius. If your radius server isn't built on FreeRadius, you may have different error messages in different situations. But you may also have some similar ones with slightly different error messages. So let's look. Scrolling down. Here's what it says here. If you see the server send an access challenge and the client never sends another access request, then stop. The supplicant on the client PC doesn't like what's going on and is shutting down. And on Windows, this means it shuts down without an error message. So the user thinks, it must be the network, because I didn't get an error message. I would get an error message if it was a client problem. Would that we were all so lucky. In Radius, as in .1x, all traffic originates with the server or switch. So the radius server will say, here is my access challenge. And this is after the .1x EAP TLS session has already been validated. And you'll see that in the radius logs. EAP TLS works fine. Now the server says, here's my access challenge. It expects an access request. Access challenge, access request, access challenge, access request. Every time the access challenge goes out, no access request happens. That is the client, my friends. Print that trace off, show it to the client people, say, that's your guy, not talking anymore. My server did its part. It sent out the challenge. The client failed to do the request. Okay. On a Windows machine, you go to that link that's showed here, support.microsoft.com, KB814394. That's for an earlier version of Windows, but it's still pretty much the same. Basically, Windows likes their certificates to look a certain way. And if your certificate does not have what's called a subject alternative name, or SAN, that includes the fully qualified domain name of the certificate authority, problems can happen with that server when it deals with FreeRadius. So when you generate your certificates for 802.1x using a certificate authority, you want to include those fields that Microsoft says are important, especially if you're installing them on Windows devices. Stands to reason. Now, going down to further summary here on this particular page, if Windows doesn't see certain things in the certificates, it can stop doing this transaction. It'll get the challenges, then it stops sending the requests, and it's over there. You need to also make sure that all the root certificates and intermediate certificates are installed on that PC, so things work well. It won't support wildcard certificates. If the certificate, this is one that I saw that was really interesting. If the certificate chain is too long and it requires too many round trips to the wireless controller and back for this thing to finish, Windows shuts down. It decides, that's it, I'm going to quit talking to you. And of course, a radio server, if you're not going to talk to the radio server, he's not going to sit around and hold your hand. He's going to say, fine, I'll end this session, I'll move on to the next one. But when it ends that session, it gives that error message so you know, hey buddy, it's not my problem, it's your problem. Okay? Other systems will work well. Linux, BSD, it says right there, they're doing fine. And then of course at the very end it says someone needs to ask Microsoft to please stop making life hard for their customers. There's so many things that could fall in that category. But that's not the place for this video here. This is to talk about how you can get these particular radio situations where it's not the server's fault or the controller's fault, it is the client's fault. Specifically in the area of certificates. Many, if not all of your problems dealing with 802.1x and Radius are going to be client related. Have that tattooed on your forehead. It's client. The .1x is client. It's a certificate problem. Check your certificates. Maybe you shouldn't have that tattooed on your forehead, but have something nearby where you could show client people time and again, train them on this. When they can't log in, don't start checking server conditions. Don't start checking Radius conditions or wireless controller conditions unless it affects everybody there. If at least one person can get on, you check the other clients. That's all there is to it. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. I hope that if you're having headaches with wireless people and that this is able to help you out. And for more on this, come by www.networking-forums.com, where a lot of really smart people are ready to give a lot of really great advice. For networking-forums.com, I'm Dean Webb. Bye for now.